In this video, we're gonna find out which auto-tune is better for your vocals. Now, there will be links in the description to download/buy these plugins. Some of them are affiliate links, so I will get a kickback if you do purchase them, and I am very appreciative of that. Which brings me to my first plugin on this list, the pitch correction in GarageBand. As you probably know, GarageBand is a beginner music production program that is very powerful, actually, for it being a free program. And as someone who's used GarageBand to record and release several of my albums, I can say this is a very capable DAW. But beyond that, the pitch correction, although very simple, is also very effective. You don't have to pay for the DAW. It comes with your Mac or your iOS device, and the pitch correction is included already, so you don't have to pay extra for that either. So this is one of the pros of GarageBand's pitch correction. Another pro is that, again, it's very simple and easy to use. It's literally just one bar that you slide up or down, determining how strong or how weak that pitch correction is going to be in your song, or I should say for that particular vocal. And this is why I believe that GarageBand's pitch correction can be so underrated, because a lot of people think that the simpler something is, the more weaker it is, or the less powerful it is to use in a professional sounding song, right? But there have been features that I've recorded for other artists who are Grammy Award nominated and Emmy Award winning that have used my particular vocals in their song that came from GarageBand with that pitch correction built in. So if you're a beginner in the process of making music, then this is going to be something that you definitely want to consider, because you probably may not have the money to buy one of the more expensive plugins on this list. But also, even if you do have the money to buy those, you may not have the knowledge to use those just yet, or the experience. One of the cons is, one of the pros is the fact that it's super simple. This means that it does have a lot of limitations when it comes to how you want to use it. Because all there is one single knob that you turn up and down, you're not going to be able to customize what notes that you want to take in or include into that scale that you have to set your song in before you start correcting your pitch. And secondly, it doesn't have any additional features like adjusting formants or have some of the humanizing or vibrato effects that some of the other plugins have. So while GarageBand's pitch correction can be seen as a tool for beginners to use, I can say that yes, it can be very limited in some circumstances. However, that does not mean that it can't be just as effective as other plugins. It just depends on what you're trying to do in your song and your use case. Let's take a look at some examples. So this is my song 360. This song has auto-tune on every single vocal. This is a good example of how a free pitch correction plugin can really change the way that your song sounds. Doesn't take much. So this is what it sounds like without the pitch correction.
We don't even have to become friends. I held you near, but nothing lasts forever. Now I know we had to win. Look.
GarageBand's pitch correction is as simple as coming to this little scissor icon, hitting the track button, and hitting limit to key, and just turning this up. You don't have to hit limit to key, but this is what's going to tune your vocal to the key of the song and make it more accurate. Not have you jumping all over the place if you're someone who can't really hold a note, no offense. So if I go all the way to 100, let's see the difference that it makes.
We don't even have to become friends. I held you near, but nothing.
You can hear those. It's almost like the notes are flipping, you know? It's like a very apparent shift in the voice. So in GarageBand, this is going to affect both the strength and the note transition speed. This is all controlled by this one thing, whereas in other plugins, you're gonna have those two separate. Since we're talking about Apple products, next on this list is gonna be Logic Pro X's pitch correction. The pros of this particular plugin is that, once again, it does come with Logic Pro, so it's something that you don't have to pay extra for. Because it comes with Logic Pro, it has seamless integration with the workflow, so there's no kind of fiddling around or hoping that it's compatible with your DAW, because of course, if you're using Logic, then it's gonna work with it. And lastly, it is very simple and easy to use, easy to navigate. It's not something that looks super complex with a bunch of knobs like some of the other ones on this list, but it does have more features than GarageBand in the sense that you can customize those notes. Now, once again, some of these pros are actually also cons, because the fact that it comes with Logic Pro means you can't use it outside of Logic Pro. You can't use this in FL Studio or Ableton, for instance, and the same goes for GarageBand too. Another con is that Logic Pro itself actually does cost money. It's not a free DAW. This is not like GarageBand. So Logic costs $200 to purchase in the first place. It is a bit more of a capable pitch correction tool because of that ability to adjust adjust the notes in your scales. And this can make it a little bit easier to avoid those wonky sounding notes that you can get sometimes in GarageBand when you're like in between notes and it's trying to find which note to correct you or pitch you to, you know what I mean? So Logic, in a sense, can sometimes sound more human if you want that effect than GarageBand, but the difference is not gonna be super huge. The response time is gonna be basically the speed / the strength of our auto-tune. Let's just go all the way and see what it sounds like.
We don't even have to become friends. I held you near, but nothing lasts forever. Now I know we had to win. Looking back at all.
It's not as wonky as WAVESTUNE Real Time or any of the other auto-tunes would be if I turned it up all the way to the maximum strength, which is actually saying a lot about the algorithm that Apple has in Logic Pro. So I would say this is a pretty adequate pitch correction tool to use if you don't have any other tool and you do happen to have Logic Pro. Which brings me to plugin number 3, and this is iZotope's NECTAR 3. The thing about NECTAR 3 is it's not just a pitch correction tool. It has a pitch correction feature built into it, but it's actually an entire vocal chain in one plugin. So you get all different kinds of features like compressors and EQs. You can also sculpt the sound of your vocals within this one plugin. It's also got a really cool vocal assistant type feature where AI will listen to your vocal and suggest a vocal chain for you depending on what you tell it you want it to sound like. So I would say the pitch correction part of this particular plugin is kind of a background feature that's not really the highlight, but it is something that it can do, and that's why it's on this list. Some of the pros about iZotope NECTAR 3 are going to be the user-friendly interface and intuitive controls that you can use. It's very simple, and you can pretty much see where everything is and not be afraid to click on something, because I know how that is sometimes. Now, since this is a third-party program that's not just on the beginner level, it does come with a bit more features for your pitch correction, like shifting the formant of your vocal, setting the vocal register, so like alto, tenor, bass, aka low, high, or middle. And while GarageBand and Logic had the strength of the pitch correction, this has the strength and the speed. And yes, these are two different adjustments that you can make that will affect your vocal in a different way. Another pro with this plugin, even though you can select the key yourself, it does have an auto detect feature, which is actually really cool for those who don't know too much about music theory. So if you're one of those people, then maybe this is going to be the plugin for you. Now, the drawback is this does cost money. We're not talking about free included plugins anymore. It's anywhere from $130 to $250, I believe. Another con about this plugin is if you have an older computer, it can be resource intensive. So I noticed on one of my older MacBooks that I used to run this plugin on is that the graphics would get a little bit choppy and the computer would slow down when I had it on multiple vocal tracks. So you want to think about that yourself if you're dealing with a computer that is a little bit dated. And then secondly, another con is even though this does have slightly more features, more customization than Logic or GarageBand, these are still going to be a little bit more limited than that of Melodyne or ANTARES because it's so simplified and it's not just built around pitch correction. It's not a plugin meant for that. It's meant for everything in the vocal chain. With NECTAR 3, you see we have this stuff up here, which is going to be where our vocal chain is. So we have EQs and compressors and different things we can add, but we're only focusing on the pitch right now. So we just hit to enable the pitch correction, and we have different features on the side here from a lower range. So this is like bass notes. We have a mid range, which is like tenor notes, alto notes, and a high range, which is like high alto to soprano notes. This is going to be what kind of makes it more accurate than something like pitch correction for GarageBand because it doesn't ask you any of that information. I'm going to say I'm in mid. I'm not singing really low. The scale is in F major, so that's the same as the song here. But we can also use an auto detect feature if we wanted to.
We don't even have to become friends. I held you near, but nothing lasts forever. Now I know we had to win. Looking back at all of our plans as they disappear.
And as you can see, it's suggesting F major for us right here. So you can go ahead and do that. So it's basically giving you 3 different keys to select from to kind of see which one is correct. Which I think is pretty cool. That's where you're going to get that more robotic effect. And strength all the way up is a more robotic effect because we're getting the maximum amount of strength for that pitch correction to be applied to our vocal and the least amount of time for that pitch correction to happen in our vocal. So we're not waiting a few milliseconds for it to start activating as we're singing.
We don't even have to become friends. I held you near, but nothing lasts forever. Now I know we had to win. Looking back at all.
Now you'll notice, because it said it's taking out the vibrato. So when I had to win, instead of that vibrato still being in there, it's trying to make it one single note. So because I'm fluttering between two notes, it's trying to find out which one to put me on. And that's where you get that little sound in there. So in those cases, if you're a singer, you don't want that to happen, that's where you kind of just do the same thing that you do in GarageBand. I'd say maybe 80%. So you would have to adjust this to where you see fit. But then also what you can do is turn up the speed so that the auto-tune is not engaging as fast as it was. Now I did like how clean it did sound with the speed all the way down. Even like some of the other features like the format here, which is pretty cool. You can adjust the format to get a different sound in our vocal if we want to have some cool effects going on.
We don't even have to become friends. I held you near, but nothing lasts forever. Now I know we had to win.
Now for the fourth plugin on this list is going to be ANTARES AUTOTUNE Pro X. Now this is personally one of my go-to pitch corrections or auto-tune features, specifically because there are so many things that you can do with ANTARES AUTOTUNE. And not only that, but they do have a subscription service called AUTOTUNE Unlimited, which gives you access to multiple different types of AUTOTUNE plugins that are useful for different things. So let's talk about the pros of AUTOTUNE Pro X. One is going to be the advanced pitch detection algorithm that allows for a more natural sounding and extremely accurate pitch correction. I mean, since they've been doing it for so long and have been leading the charge for 2 decades, this makes total sense. Not only that, there is indeed a wide range of tools when it comes to correcting your pitch or changing and altering your pitch. You don't necessarily have to just correct it, but making it custom to how you want it to sound. I would say even the workflow is a lot easier with some of the implementations that they have, from being able to switch from the auto pitch correction to the graph. This allows people who want to have a more surgical approach to their auto-tune to be able to do that without having to buy a totally separate plugin to do so. You can detune, you can transpose, you can adjust the format, and there's even a feature in here where if you have auto key by ANTARES, auto key will automatically send the key of the song that it's detecting to this plugin so that you don't have to guess it yourself. Now when it comes to the cons of this plugin, this is where we start getting into the complications, because this one is not going to be as easy to use for beginners. This is going to have a steep learning curve. And because of that, this is not a plugin that I would recommend any beginner go out and buy unless they have the time to sit down and really dive in and learn how to use it. Another big con, at least if you're trying to buy it outright and own it, is that this can be a little bit more expensive than some of the other auto-tune plugins. And the different plugins that you get with ANTARES AUTOTUNE, I think is pretty worth it. So AUTOTUNE Pro, it's got this real-time mode called Auto, and then it's got the graph mode where you have to like do the tuning yourself. Both of these can be easy to use depending on how you choose to use them. So of course we have the retune speed. This is like the strength of it. FlexTune allows for more vocal expression. So like if you're going a little bit out of the range, it'll allow the vocal to flex a little bit. That's why it's called FlexTune. So it's not trying to be so strict in confining your vocal to this particular scale and range. Natural vibrato, again, this is like if you have a lot of vibrato in your songs and you want to keep that and maintain it, you would turn that up. Then humanize is when you're singing those longer notes, it adds realism to that so that it's not just sounding like a super processed vocal. So you set the key. If you have auto key, you would select that here. So here I have auto key and we're going to let the song play. F major, click. Now, since we have F major, because that is the key of our song, we click send to AUTOTUNE. When we come into our AUTOTUNE Pro X, we can see now the key is at F major because we automatically sent that to every single AUTOTUNE in our project. So first, auto is pretty self-explanatory. You just turn the knobs until you get your desired effect with your vocal.
We don't even have to become friends. I held you near, but nothing lasts forever. Now I know we had to win. Looking back at all of our plans as they disappeared, and didn't think I'd ever come back, but girl, here I stand.
And then of course we have the graph version version here. So the graph is going to be a little bit more surgical. That's where you can really dial in the sound, the notes that you want, which I find really, really cool. So what you need to do here is choose to track the pitch and time, especially if you want to do some time shifting and things like that. Hit play and then it does it for you. So now we already have all these notes here that we can go ahead and customize. So if we want to get really surgical, like I said, we can choose to put these notes anywhere we want them.
We don't even have to become friends.
Like stupid stuff, you know what I mean?
We don't even have to become friends.
Another thing I like to do with this, we already have our retune speed and everything set up here, but let's say if we didn't have that set up or all this tuning wasn't here, you can take this create notes from density and you just kind of go like that. You slide it up and it'll add and tune everything for you.
We don't even have to become friends. I held you near, but nothing lasts forever. Now I know we had to win.
And then there's a whole host of tools that you can use in here to edit your song. I'm not gonna go into that because that's a whole another Oprah show, but you get the point. Now, last but not least is going to be WAVESTUNE by Waves Audio. Some of the pros of this are going to be a little bit similar to that of ANTARES AUTOTUNE Pro X, where we have a wide range of pitch correction tools built into this software. The cons are comparable as well. It's going to be really resource intensive. I've had times where I've used this plugin on a lot of my vocal tracks in a song, and the project in GarageBand and in Logic would start to stutter and start to jump around on the timeline. And this wasn't really a pleasant experience until I got, you know, my new M1 MacBook. This one does cost money as well, but it's not nearly as expensive as AUTOTUNE Pro X. In fact, you can usually find this on sale because Waves is always doing this thing where they act like, oh, 89% off, 99% off, whatever. When really it's just, that's what the plugin costs. The plugin is 30 bucks, okay? Let's. But WAVESTUNE does cost between $30 and $40 depending on which version you get. So there is WAVESTUNE, there's WAVESTUNE LT, and then there's WAVESTUNE Real Time. And this is where I was talking about having to buy different plugins to do different things. So WAVESTUNE is not gonna have the auto tuning feature that AUTOTUNE Pro X has built in addition to the graph. WAVESTUNE is just the graph. If you're someone who's looking for that real-time auto-tune feature where it's just happening as you're setting and changing the knobs, and that's gonna be where WAVESTUNE Real Time comes in. So you set the scale, so we're in F major, I am in the tenor range.
We don't even have to become friends. I held you near, but nothing lasts forever. Now I know we had to win.
Maybe if we get the transition down and the speed maybe down to 15.
We don't even have to become friends. I held you near, but nothing lasts forever. Now I know we had to win. Looking back at all.
They also have a piano here, just like in Logic Pro's pitch correction, where you can choose which notes to include, exclude, bypass, and things like that. So that is pretty effective. So, who makes the best auto-tune plugin and which one is going to be the best for you to pick for your vocals? There is no definitive answer to this. It depends entirely on your needs and your budget. So I would say if you're a beginner who wants some pitch correction and some auto-tune in their songs, if you do own a Mac computer and you have GarageBand, then just stick with that because it's free and it's gonna get the job done for you just fine. Trust me, I did it myself. Now, if you don't have a Mac or you already have Logic and spending money is not really a big deal to you, you just want the best pitch correction and auto-tune for your songs, I would say this depends entirely on your workflow. If you want one plugin that can do it all without having to, you know, switch to different ones and buy different things, then go for ANTARES AUTOTUNE because that has everything that you'll need built into one specific plugin. From all the different features that I talked about, performance shifting, time stretching, pitch correction, the graph or in real time, and constant updates from a company that has been on it for the last 20 years. However, if you do want to save some money and you do want to own your plugins, then I would say WAVESTUNE is the way to go because this plugin is only going to be 30 bucks for you to buy outright, or 40 bucks. Or if you buy both, it's 70 bucks. So you can have real-time tuning and the graph as well. But whatever you choose, make sure it's the one that's right for you and not just the one that some guy tells you to buy, okay? This video was not sponsored. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a comment, leave a like, hit that bell, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you later. Stay legendary.